Us online today. Welcome and thank you for attending this seminar of Sustainable Construction in China and Australia organized by AKI and PU Bangun. Today, hybrid sessions held at MTH 27 Tower in Jakarta. Thank you PT Adikarya Persero Tbk for hosting us both online and offline. So without further ado, let's start our session today, and I would like to invite all of us to rise up for our national anthem song Indonesia Raya.
Tanah tumpah darahku, di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi pandu hidupku. Indonesia.
Thank you. You may have a seat. And before we are moving forward, let us watch the safety induction video from MTH 27 Tower.
Selamat datang di Ruang Harmonis lantai 16, Kantor Pusat PT Adikarya Persero Tbk. Sebagai wujud komitmen manajemen terhadap penerapan sistem keselamatan dan kesehatan kerja, maka kami wajib memberikan informasi keselamatan selama berada di lingkungan kantor pusat. Gedung ini terdiri dari 4 lantai parkir basement dan 13 lantai yang terdiri dari 2 lantai area komersial dan 11 lantai perkantoran PT Adikarya yang terdiri dari beberapa departemen. MTH 27 Office Suite sudah memiliki sistem akses yang hanya dapat diakses terbatas karyawan dan manajemen. Setiap tamu di luar karyawan gedung yang diundang ke kantor pusat PT Adikarya dan sudah memiliki kode QR bisa langsung mengakses ke lokasi tujuan dengan konfirmasi security. Tamu yang tidak diundang wajib melapor ke resepsionis, mengisi buku tamu, dan menukar kartu identitas diri dengan kartu identitas tamu sebagai tanda pengenal. Tamu dari kantor pusat PT Adikarya dapat menunggu di lounge lantai 5. Gedung ini dilengkapi dengan fasilitas masjid yang berada di lantai 3. Area parkir kendaraan terhubung dengan stasiun LRT dan busway di lantai 2. Toilet difabel, toilet pria dan wanita, pantry, ruang laktasi yang terdapat di setiap lantai gedung, lift, tangga darurat. Terdapat juga unit kesehatan kerja dengan tenaga medis yang berada di lantai 5 dan ruang kesehatan lantai GF. Atau jika terjadi kecelakaan, Anda dapat menghubungi security gedung. Terdapat 4 lift penumpang, 1 lift barang, 1 lift VIP, dan 2 pintu menuju tangga darurat. Untuk mengetahui tujuan Anda, kami sediakan peta direktori yang tersedia di area lobi lift tiap lantai. Seluruh lantai dilengkapi AC dan bebas asap rokok serta vape. Bila terpaksa ingin merokok, lakukan di area merokok yang disediakan, yaitu di area Grab and Go di lantai GF. Jika hendak makan dan minum, gunakan area makan yang telah disediakan. Selalu matikan AC, lepas stop kontak dan penerangan lampu setelah digunakan. Gunakan air secukupnya dan matikan air usai menggunakan. Buanglah sampah di tempat sampah yang tersedia. Keadaan darurat yang mungkin terjadi di area kantor PT Adikarya antara lain kebakaran, gempa bumi, dan ancaman bom. Untuk menghadapi keadaan darurat tersebut dan untuk keselamatan bersama, gedung ini telah dilengkapi sistem pemadaman api berupa sprinkler, alat deteksi asap dan panas, alarm, upper indoor hydrant yang tersedia tiap lantai, dan outdoor hydrant, serta difasilitasi kotak P3K. Penunjuk arah evakuasi exit menuju tangga darurat dan area titik kumpul. Hari ini dipastikan tidak ada pelatihan tanggap darurat di kantor PT Adikarya. Jika terdengar bunyi alarm atau tanda bahaya lainnya, tetaplah tenang dan selalu waspada. Tunggu pengumuman dan instruksi yang diberikan oleh petugas evakuasi. Segera matikan peralatan elektronik dan selamatkan dokumen dan aset penting yang mudah dibawa. Jika ada perintah untuk melakukan evakuasi, dilarang menggunakan lift. Segera keluar menuju titik kumpul melalui tangga darurat sesuai rambu arah evakuasi. Jika Anda berada di lift, segera keluar lift dan menuju tangga darurat. Lepaskan sepatu bertumit tinggi dan jangan berlari atau berdesakan. Saat menuruni tangga, berjalanlah dengan tertib dan gunakan handrail yang tersedia. Setelah tiba di titik kumpul, segera berbaris dan melakukan absensi. Jangan kembali ke dalam gedung sebelum tanda aman diumumkan oleh petugas evakuasi. Berikut adalah rute evakuasi dari ruang harmonis menuju ke titik kumpul. Prosedur menghadapi gempa bumi. Jika terjadi gempa bumi, segera cari tempat berlindung di sekitar Anda, di bawah meja yang kokoh atau di dekat kolom bangunan, dan jauhi dinding, jendela, serta benda-benda lain yang mudah jatuh. Lindungi kepala Anda. Setelah gempa berhenti, evakuasi menuju titik kumpul. Prosedur menghadapi kebakaran. Jika menemukan tanda muncul kebakaran, silakan menghubungi manajemen dan security. Bila diperlukan, gunakan alat pemadam api ringan yang tersedia. Jika asap sudah memenuhi ruangan, ikuti prosedur evakuasi. Segera menunduk dan merangkak untuk menghindari asap menuju ke tangga darurat. Prosedur menghadapi ancaman bom. Tetaplah tenang dan segera lapor security jika Anda menemukan benda mencurigakan atau pesan elektronik. Demikian informasi induksi keselamatan di ruang harmonis kantor PT Adikarya. Jika ada pertanyaan, silakan ajukan kepada karyawan PT Adikarya yang menemani Anda atau manajemen gedung. Terima kasih atas perhatian Anda dan selamat beraktivitas. Safety and health is our spirit.
Okay, and next, I would like to invite Mr. Joko Sarwono, Chairman of AKI, for the opening speech. Please, Mr. Joko.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, our speaker, Assistant Professor Eker Martek from Deakin University, Australia, Associate Professor Tung Kwan Chan from Latrobe, Australia, then Professor Chuan Chen from Sichuan University, China, Professor Krishna Pribadi from Vice President Peace Connection, and Prof. Bimo Sumardi from ITB. Thank you for your coming today in this seminar. I believe that in construction industry, we would like to discuss several matter. Today, maybe one of you may be specialized in PPP project, so we may explore in this topic. But let us a little bit describe what construction technology in Indonesia. So currently, we concentrate in IKN previously, but in the future we don't know yet because we have new president. So what's going on with the new capital Indonesia, we don't know yet. So hopefully that it will be continued, but we hope that still our focus is still in infrastructure. The key trends in construction technology, such as building information modeling, and then aerial imaging, and then artificial intelligence, 3D printing, and also sustainable construction type practices, and also robotic and automation. We believe that all of you specialize in such technology, but other than that, we also have some issue in developing our infrastructure because our government, of course, very limited budget in develop our infrastructure. In this point, of course, involvement from private is necessary. So we would like to know that maybe from your experience in your country or whatever from your consultancy in several country, maybe you can share with us how is the PPP project is conducting. Maybe we would like also to tell you that the association, Indonesian Association Contractor, I mean that Indonesian Contractor Association is one of the association of contractor, consists of 106 members. We only, but in total 52,000 contractors in Indonesia, but we only 106 among of them. But instead of 106 members, our market share is 80% from domestic market. Means that most of our members grab the government budget for construction. So that's why this is the good event to talk with our members that maybe you can share that your experience. We also do some government project, but we also have some PPP project also. So maybe we can discuss here and after. And then also we develop some such infrastructure project in cooperate with the foreign direct investment, such as Finland, and then also from German. So please share your experience in this event. So we would like to have good experience from you. And then let us leverage our knowledge about infrastructure and PPP project. And once again, thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to the insightful discussion today. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Joko. Thank you. And now we are coming to our main session. And today, actually, I'm not hosting this discussion alone. We are also accompanied by Mr. Putra Prasetyo from Risk Analyst Department PT Adikarya Persero Tbk, who will hosting the presentation and discussion from our speakers. Mr. Putra, the next session is yours.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to PT Adikarya Persero Tbk. I am Putra Prasetyo as a moderator for the nice discussion this afternoon about sustainable construction in China and Australia. It is my pleasure to welcome you. And also, this program is brought to you by Asosiasi Kontraktor Indonesia, PU Bangun, and Adikarya. It has been an honor. On behalf of the team, let me give you a very warm welcome to our special attendees, our distinguished guests, especially the amazing speakers who is going to enlighten us with interesting topics. Professor Igor Martek from Deakin University, Australia, Professor Tong Hwan Chan from La Trobe University, Australia, Professor Chuan Chen from Sichuan University, China, Professor Krishna Pribadi from Universitas Persada Indonesia, and Professor Bimo Sumardi from ITB Bandung. And also, good afternoon for all the attendees who join us on Zoom. I'm aware that we have hundreds of participants for now. Okay, we know that the global population growth demands construction speed up for new infrastructure facilities such as road and other public facilities, as well as housing. China's construction industry is expected to grow by 4% in 2024, supported by investment in infrastructure and energy projects. The Australian construction industry is expected to grow by 6.9%. Investment in infrastructure and adoption of innovative technology is driving sustainable development and enabling the industry to expand amidst an evolving regulatory landscape and priorities change. However, Australia's construction sector is facing challenges such as inflation, skill shortages, and supply chain disruptions, which are expected to impact the short-term growth. And then for the attendance, if you have any questions, please write your question on Q&A column. Don't forget to state your name, where you're from, your question, and whom the question is for. So we cannot wait our discussion this afternoon. So we would like to hear the explanations about construction social responsibility practices and sustainability in Australia from Professor Igor Martek. Please, time is yours.
Next.
Okay. Or if you want to stand, or we just
Yeah, can
easier.
Yeah.
Can, of course. Can stand, stay next, or
You can stand, but not dance. Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. Actually, it's quite an honor and very exciting for us to have the opportunity to engage with the Indonesian construction industry. Very pleased for that opportunity. Clearly, Indonesia has been progressing remarkably, and it is exciting to see what progress you have achieved. So today, we've been asked to talk a little bit about infrastructure. I have to start by apologizing for the photographs that are there. There's some mistakes. If you look very carefully, you will see the representation of Professor Pak Bimo and Professor Pak Krishna are a little bit younger than that. The rest also might have a small problem too. Yeah, yeah. So what we are proposing is to talk about infrastructure. This was the theme that we had been asked to discuss. And I will just briefly, very briefly, because we don't have much time, just give you a short introduction into why infrastructure might be important. And then I'll hand over to my colleagues who will actually talk in detail about the practical application and how to go about achieving. Particularly, you'll be interested to hear from Professor Chen, who has a great deal of experience with PPP projects in China. All right, next. The first thing to say, and I'm now just giving you the background, is that as we all know, infrastructure is correlated and related very strongly to economic growth. And so the enterprise of nation building has to be carefully I don't want to blind anybody. In any event, out of 200 or so countries, you will notice our friends, the United States, generate a huge amount of global GDP. China, of course, is right there with them. And here, I think, is Indonesia. I can't see from here. And down there is Australia. So we're small. But the interesting point I want to bring out is that all these other countries, and here's the rest of the world, all the other remaining 160 countries or so, are attempting to bring up their standard of living through infrastructure. Next. And this is how the world operates. Clearly, trade, globalization is a critical factor, and infrastructure, as you of course appreciate, involves trains, freeways, and so on, airports. But that process is actually linked in to the global framework of trade. In other words, infrastructure is not just about building a road between village A and village B. Okay, this is next. But plugging into the world. And there are really only 3 centers for this. Europe, which consists, of course, of many countries. North America, which is only 3 countries, Mexico, the United States, and Canada, but basically it's the United States. So that's largely the United States alone. And Asia, which, as we saw, is fundamentally China with Japan, South Korea. And eventually, in the future, of course, yes, you guessed it, Indonesia. If we have a look at how it works, I just want to bring your attention to something very critical, which is that trade between Shanghai and Los Angeles, well, Shanghai is part of China and Los Angeles is part of the United States. We think of them as being part of separate countries. But the reality is, I looked this up, there's something like 40 flights from Shanghai to Los Angeles per day. You can transport anything from Shanghai to Los Angeles within 24 hours, anything, including a car, anything at all. And the cost to do so is relatively cheaper than perhaps dealing with from Shanghai to the Chinese hinterland. The same is true of Sao Paulo in Brazil. I just take this as an example. And Lisbon, the language of Portuguese is common. The culture is common. The business environment is common, more common in Sao Paulo in Brazil than the Amazon jungle. This is not a surprise, but what it reminds us of is that infrastructure is really about plugging into the global framework. Now, if you consider economic growth from the perspective of connectivity, these 25 times 5, 125 cities, well, actually, there's less than 125. You can see they're repeated, represent over 90% of world GDP. There in the second column, you can see Jakarta at number 12. And there's another interesting place that I'd never heard of, number 22 in the first column, which may be familiar to you as well. GDP consists of 5 categories. Trade in goods, products, we understand that. Then in services, like engineering design services, finance, money, people, labor, and information, data, and communication. Notice that Frankfurt in Germany followed by London, Amsterdam, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Stockholm, San Francisco, and so on, control the world's information. And if you look at the first column, which I can't read from here, Shanghai, Singapore, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Ningbo, Busan in South Korea, Guangzhou, Qingdao, we have to get to number 9 before we leave Asia. So everything made around the world is Asian. The money is controlled by London, New York, Hong Kong. The information is controlled again by the West. The second feature to realize here is New York, the green, features in all. Los Angeles features across them. Dubai is there. Hong Kong is there across all the categories, and Shanghai. These are the economies of the world. Cities, not so much countries. I mean, obviously countries, but I want you to understand this phenomenon, that it is trade hubs that generate the world's economies. I could say much more about this, but I'd like to give time over to people who might be more practical in their speeches. But let me just explain the situation in Australia, a little bit about China, and finally Indonesia, just to compare 3 countries in terms of infrastructure. When you think of Australia, what do you imagine is the situation regarding infrastructure? No one's going to answer that, or are you? Good, bad, ugly, wonderful? Australia, you're doing what my students do. Whenever they ask me a question, I ask them a question. When I don't know the answer, right. Well, we don't make railways. Australia had, for a long time, the highest standard of living. In fact, we were lucky enough to have the longest continuing series of years without a depression, without recession of any developed country, and that's thanks to China, because China is who our largest trading partner. In fact, I don't want to give you a history lesson, but I just want to emphasize the value of infrastructure. This is the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's iconic in Australia. Yes, there are koala bears and kangaroos, and we know about the Opera House. This is the next one when you think about the icons. This is Sydney some time back. Sydney is our most populous city and the heart of our economic growth. When the Harbour Bridge was built, there were no PPPs and there was no cost-benefit analysis. How did they build the bridge? What criteria did they use? They built the biggest bridge they could build. It was incredibly over capacity. Large number of lanes to go to an empty shore on the other side. In the 30s. So this bridge, 20s maybe, this bridge went to nowhere. Now, Sydney Harbour is very large, and what it did was seed the growth on the other side of the bay, and suddenly Sydney flourished because it made access land and farmland and so on the other side of the bay, whereas you would have to travel for many hours to get around it. This is something else that's quite interesting. The east coast of Australia has a mountain range very close to the sea. When the rain falls along the Great Dividing Range, which stretches from Melbourne all the way up to New Guinea, I suppose you've heard of New Guinea, all the way up the coast. When the rain falls on the mountain range, yes, my signal got lost. The water flushes away into the sea. And so once again, the Australian government initiated the Snowy Mountain Scheme, which aimed to divert water running off the east side back to the west. And the population of Australia at that time was 3 million people, which is a small number of people. When I give you these figures, you may not be impressed, but for a country with 3 million people, 145 kilometers of tunnels, 80 kilometers of aqueduct, 25 years to complete, and covering almost 8,000 square kilometers. And the water ran back under the mountains and opened up all the land all the way to South Australia, again, generating a huge economic benefit for the country. No cost benefit analysis, no PPP. Australia became a wealthy country. And I just show you, definitely I can't read that, but if you look at competitiveness, this is maybe a couple of years old now, Tokyo, Singapore, Seoul, Hong Kong, Yokohama, Osaka, Shanghai, Taipei, and Sydney. These are the list of which countries or which cities, competitive measures. Like what's going on down there. Now, somebody told me that the first high-speed rail in the Southern Hemisphere is not in Australia. Isn't that strange? A developed country like Australia is not producing high-speed rail. We have been talking about it for over, well, almost half a century. If we had done that, all this land would have opened up. In the meantime, Sydney and Melbourne, the two cities which are on that map that I am not going to point to, have become more and more dense. Price of real estate has increased. The cost of living has skyrocketed. I saw a news report recently that the cost of apartments in Sydney is so high now that professions like nursing, teaching, being a policeman, the salaries are insufficient to support a family and the rent and cost of living. So nurses are quitting their jobs. We have a shortage of nurses and basic skilled people in our big cities because we used to build infrastructure and now we don't build infrastructure. And the reason is cost-benefit analysis. We can never pay for that railway. There are just not enough people in Australia to pay for a railway that goes anywhere along that line. And this is why we don't build one. However, if we did, all that land would open up and we wouldn't have almost 50% of our population in a couple of cities when the land itself is one of the largest countries in the world. Let me just summarize even what the government has said. This is old news, but it's still valid today. I read the bottom there. It is clear that expenditure on maintaining existing infrastructure and providing new infrastructure is well below what is necessary. As well, there is still a lack of strategic and coordinated infrastructure planning and prioritization across many infrastructure sectors. We have lost a vision. And here you can see the problem. Whereas Shanghai, Los Angeles, New York, London is connected to the world, Sydney and Melbourne have that connectivity, but almost no connectivity to the rest of Australia, the blue. Once again, it's easier and cheaper and more cost-effective for Melbourne and Sydney to deal with the rest of the world than it is for them to deal with product, people, services in the hinterland. The middle of Australia is dying. And the big cities in Australia are becoming too costly to live in. Here is an example. You can see comparisons between Canberra, our capital, and other parts. Tasmania, just show you on the map, is our Lombok or whatever, the island down the bottom there. Tasmania is almost in poverty. Unemployment is very high. Education is low. Air quality is good because there's nothing there. We have this increasing stratification. those who have, who have not. These are the characteristics of poorer countries. Where we looked at data on connectivity, you can see Australia's the GDP is along the bottom. Australia is somewhere in the middle, not too bad. And connectivity is up the side. Our GDP is pretty good, below the United States, but still better than the UK. Similar to perhaps Germany. But look where our connectivity is. Very low. Now, look where Indonesia is. Low GDP and low connectivity. That's the good news. That's the good news. Because if you want to be in a country as an engineer building infrastructure, looking to make your country great again, that's the place to be. That's the place to be. Singapore's saturated. Okay, where do you go from there? Indonesia is a marvelous opportunity. Here is where we are. Our rating for infrastructure, if you look at the bottom right, state by state, yes, the capital territory is a B, but our states are C. C means adequate. Major changes are required to enable infrastructure to be fit for its current and anticipated future purposes. Major changes are required to be fit for current and future purposes. And the prognosis is we will drop to D. Population is the fastest growing in the developed world. We don't have enough houses. We don't have, we are building suburbs with no schools or roads. We don't know what we're doing anymore. And the situation is something like that. Now, I paint that picture very extreme because I don't have a lot of time. And clearly it's not as, dramatic as all of that. I tend to be poetic when I speak. But I just signal the challenge that we face. Let me compare this. Well, so here we are. Current ranking 16th in transportation, 20th in total infrastructure. So what's the situation in China? I hesitate to speak because I'm not an expert. The expert is here. So the good news is Professor Chen will speak after me and correct all my mistakes. And I'm sure that will happen. But if I tell you a little bit about China, there are a lot of people there. And of course, the Chinese government has done much to lift a lot of people out of poverty. Do you believe they have souls? Do you think God knows their name? There's a lot of people who have come from a very poor time to live in a country that has achieved great things. That's a view of Shanghai. You can see the colonial buildings in the foreground, and you can see that photo is already old. But you can see that within a generation, the changes have been remarkable. And even as you go around China, you can see Indonesia there. Where's my pointer, my happy pointer? You can see Indonesia is just there and Australia is just there. You can measure China's provinces as equivalents to national economies. There's Iran, Greece, Belgium, Switzerland, South Africa. And connectivity, rail system, clustering of economic zones, and logistics corridors have helped to develop China to where it is today. I point out that China's infrastructure stock, it's perhaps again a little bit old, this slide, is certainly above average. Japan's way above average. And remember, I mentioned that infrastructure is correlated with economic growth. But let me show you this. These are, even though China is now was slightly above average, we see very large growth figures. Planned expansions for railways, plus 54, planned expansion for expressways, plus 157, 132 for container terminals, and airports, 62. That's a lot of additional expansion. And we know about the Belt and Road, which is an effort. All right, so where does that leave us? Possibly China's infrastructure spending exceeds the need. And I hesitate to say overspending without consummate revenue stream has possibly left China in a situation where its economy now is underperforming. Australia is underperforming for a lack of infrastructure. However, when you build too much infrastructure, you're also in trouble. Finding the middle road is really what we need to do. And that brings us to Indonesia, but I'm going to stop there because I've run out of time. And you may be wondering what the mystery is here, but perhaps that's something we can discuss. Thank you very much.
Okay, give applause for Prof. Igor Matek from the University of Australia that explains about the construction social responsibility practices and sustainability in Australia, and that explains us global connectivity, about the world economic situations, impact to Indonesia right now, and key tradables, goods, service, finance people that and also remember us about the Make Indonesia Great Again and how to make the golden Indonesia for the next. Okay, we cannot wait for the next speakers. And we'll talk about construction management in Australia for Prof. Tong Kwang Chan from La Trobe University, Australia. Oh, switch. Okay. Okay. So, Prof. Chuan Chen from Sichuan University, China, will talk about finance and construction management in China. Time is yours.
Can you open the file for me? Thanks for the invitation. It's my great pleasure to be here and share with you some information from China. Actually, I will prepare some slides to cover a chronology of infrastructure development in China for the past 40 years. But I think after a site visit to your new capital city, I changed my mind. I will just try to use some of my slides to show maybe some insights I've got. I hope they can be of value to Indonesia. Personally, I'm a professor. I'm a full-time professor from Sichuan University. But meanwhile, I'm running my own consulting business. My team and I have finished consulting for over 300 PPP projects in China with a total value over $100 billion US. So I also help the Ministry of Finance in formulating some policy. By saying that, I just want to emphasize, I've got something for you from China based on policy formulation, consulting practices, and academic research. So what did I find? I got several questions and I've got several observations for the past 3 days. I think the first issue is that Indonesia and China actually got some very significant similarity regarding PPP. The first is, I think the dominant similarity is that we have state-owned enterprises as the major players in PPP. I think in China, almost maybe more than 30%, no, more than 70% of PPP projects are sponsored by SOEs. That could be very similar here in Indonesia. So is that good or bad? The answer from China is that maybe it's bad. Because I think the ultimate purpose for PPP is to achieve value for money. But to achieve value for money, we need to split risks between the public side and private side in a very efficient manner. There are quite a few theories that can help us to assign risks between the two parties. However, based on traditional theories, if we come up with a risk split system regarding a certain project, however, if the sponsor is an SOE, you will find actually the risk assignment scheme could be wrong. Why? Because SOE belongs to the government. It's one hand of the government. So any risk split could cause some problem we call the risk backflow. That means some of the risks are assigned to the sponsor, which is SOE. Then at the end of the day, some of the risks assigned to the SOE could be backflowed to the government. So that's a big issue. About 2 years ago, China has totally changed its policy. Now the new policy is that certain portion of PPPs must go to private companies. So pay attention to that. Maybe we should do some reform in our PPP framework here in Indonesia, because all in all, SOEs are less efficient than their private counterparts. Sorry. So that's a very key thing. Okay, so bear in mind, this is the first insight I would want to make in this presentation. Now, let's look at the size of the, can I? No. Okay, it doesn't work. I just want to jump to this one. Let's do the scale of the market. From 2015 till 2013 in China, we've got more than 10,000 PPP projects. And the total investment is about $2 trillion US. So by all means, China is the largest PPP market in the world. No problem at all. So the problem is that, you know, when I'm here, some friends told me there are so many PPP projects here are based on availability payment. So the government cannot afford more PPP projects. China may enjoy a higher economic scale than Indonesia. But still, I mean, how can we launch so many PPP projects? So that's the question. Why we can do so many? I mean, also our economic scale is larger, but still, how? Because in our country, we have quite a few projects which are carried out in such a way the funding from the government actually becomes part of the project. I mean, so like we have certain projects. I mean, we have some urban city development project. It's kind of a closed district. It involves a huge amount of investment, but the funding for the project actually comes from the future income in this closed district. It's not from the fiscal budget of the government. I don't know whether I make this clear. So it's a closed district. The cash flow is all in all in this district. There's no 1 cent from the government outside this district. So the sponsor can get this project and invest a huge amount of money. And then after the project is completed, when it's in operation, there could be huge amount of income. So the kind of income from this area will be used to pay for the previous investment. So it's a closed area, and any government will not be involved in this area. So government just give a land to the sponsor. That's all, no more. And if the income from that project is more than what the sponsor is expected to earn, then the government can share the extra income. By doing so, this kind of project may be huge, but does not impose any extra financial burden to the government. By doing so, we can launch a lot of projects. So when I was visiting your new capital project, I was told actually there are quite a few PPP projects in that area, and all those projects cause some financial burden to the government. But to me, it's a bit surprising, because I think if we design the structure of that project in proper manner, maybe that's not a problem. So to show how we can do that, I will show you a case study. This is the Ziyang Airport Economic Zone, very close to Chengdu. The total investment is 49 billion RMB. And the duration of the project is 20 years. It's a very typical PPP. The sponsor or the developer of the project will get several channels of income. Some of the income is based on the work, the construction and the design work by the sponsor. The other is based on the equity of the sponsor, because once you contribute equity, you are supposed to get some capital gain from that. Also, there's a debts from the banks, so there's also interest on the debts. Regarding the different contribution or different types of job, there's a kind of a return. So we have a 7% for construction of the infrastructure, then 10% for the plan and design consulting services, and the 8.4% regarding some other operational jobs. So for the financing part of it, there's a 5.88% for all the debts. Actually, the project is mainly financed by debts from the bank. So this gives the upper limit of the income that the sponsor can expect, no more. So if the future income from this closed district is more than this level, the extra income will be split between the government and the sponsor. However, if the future income is very, very limited, much less than expectation, the sponsor will suffer financial loss. But however, the government may extend the duration of concession, so more than 20 years. However, you can imagine if this project it can never succeed, that means at the end of the day, it's a big loss to the developer. That's all. That's a game rule. So the sponsor must assess the future demand risk. If the zone does not have a future, they will lose a huge amount of money. So that's how they split this kind of risks. Here is the structure of the deal. I will not go to details, but what I want to say is that as a sponsor of this project, although this project is huge, actually they do not actually invest too much money to run this project, because the whole project is phased in several stages. There are 3 stages to this project, and the initial stage may involve about 20 billion yuan, and the sponsor set up a kind of partnership fund to raise the equity for the project, and then they get the debts from the banks. So actually, the tricky thing is that this sponsor, which is a very skillful developer, just contribute a little bit of money to get the project on the move. That's amazing, but that's the reality. They make it. Now the project has moved to the 3rd stage, so it's almost there. So far, so good. So based on this case study, I just imagine when Indonesia use a kind of similar model to build the new capital, I guess maybe the project could be finished within maybe 5 to 10 years. I'm pretty confident you can make it, rather than waiting for like 20 years to come to finish all the infrastructure. Because PPP is a modality that can finish a project at the fastest speed, because it can raise capital as much as possible in a very short time frame. So for this zone, for this economic zone, we just have a single PPP. But in your new capital project, you have multiple PPP projects. So I think, why not just one? Why not just get a consortium made up of maybe several companies, and they just carry out the whole project under one PPP arrangement? Maybe that's more efficient based on the experience from China. The next lesson learned is about transparency. The Ministry of Finance in China has set up an online database. So all the PPP projects must be entered into this database. And most of the information of the project are open to the public. So everyone can review it. They know the progress of the project. By doing so, corruption is minimized. Capacity building. Ministry of Finance have organized a series of training sessions across the whole country. By doing so, the city and the county level government officials have been very well trained regarding PPP. I think that's best practice you can refer to. In China, one big challenge is that we don't have a PPP law. We run PPP all by a policy framework. That's kind of a shortcoming of our country. I think maybe Indonesia has done a much better job in this regard. Do you have a PPP law? Okay. The last one to share is the demonstration projects. So the Ministry of Finance have identified several projects from across the whole country, which have been very well performed as demonstration projects. So they are used as demos to showcase some best practices. So local governments can send the people to learn from those demo projects. I think Indonesia may do the same thing. That's good practice. Basically, that's all I want to share with you. Thank you.
For Professor Chuang Chen from Sichuan University, China, they explain us about reflections and lessons learned from China, and also give us the case study from Xi'an Airport Economic Zone that give information about investment and financing structures, and absolutely reminder about the confidence to infrastructure in Indonesia. Okay, before we continue our discussions and explanation, we would like to see the company profile of PT Adhikarya Persero Tbk. Yes.
Hello there, we are Adi. And we are more than a construction company. We are beyond.
Beyond what, you ask? For us, green is more than just a color and a movement. It's beyond. It's reflects a commitment to further invest in ESG and surely to reduce carbon emissions from our breakthrough.
It's planting not just that small tree. The 1,000 actions of green in different locations.
Supporting the use of greater public transportation every day.
Our vision is simple. It's to make the world a better place to live and to grow.
We take commuting to the next level. Yeah, that's right. Because we are beyond, we are the champion of railways.
Full right, ADI has continuously worked to connect people better and faster than ever before.
And we have helped Indonesia create many of its most beautiful and monumental projects. Look! Landmarks that have proudly put Indonesia on the map for its extraordinary construction ability.
Not to brag, but ADI has earned multiple international prizes and awards too.
Oh, we are not done. Come, let us show you why we are beyond competencies.
ADI has served and given back to the society in different business industries through many subsidiaries. Creating integrated commute facility come to life. Inventing an array of eco-friendly innovations. Supporting infrastructure through its supply of concrete. Providing students with apartment construction, partnership with notable universities. Ensuring the water running through your tap goes clearly. And increasing connectivity and economic growth by road preserving in Riau.
Amazing, right? Yes, we are ADI and we are beyond.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue our discussion. For the third speakers, please attention that okay, for the third speakers, please Prof. Krisna as everybody from Universitas Persada Indonesia will talk about construction management in Indonesia. Time is yours, sir.
Bapak Ketua Umum AKI, Pak Joko yang saya hormati, Pak Joko Sarwono, Bapak Ibu sekalian yang hadir di pertemuan ini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, hampir sore. Saya berterima kasih telah diundang dan diberi kesempatan untuk sekedar ikut-ikut ngobrol di sini, ngomong dan menyampaikan beberapa pemikiran tentang infrastruktur di Indonesia karena topiknya memang tentang infrastruktur atau sustainable infrastructure. Di sini topik saya sustainable and resilient infrastructure in Indonesia. So I would like to apologize to all our guests. I would like to talk in bahasa Indonesia because my English is not that good. So, but my presentation, yeah, my presentation is written in bahasa Inggris anyway. Yeah, we talk about infrastructure and also sustainable infrastructure, but I put here the term of resilience resilient infrastructure, it is very important because sustainability and resilience are hand in hand. Yeah, infrastructure cannot be sustainable if it is not resilient. Maybe it can be sustainable, but not resilient, but not the other way around. So the question is next, please. Maju, bisa maju. Bapak Ibu, oh sorry. Ya, ini ya. Oke, kenapa infrastruktur itu harus sustainable dan harus resilient? Kalau pertanyaan harus sustainable atau berkelanjutan istilahnya, itu kan kita punya moto 3P itu ya, planet, people, and profit atau profit, people, and planet. Ya, jadi memenuhi prinsip itulah. Kalau tidak, dunia kita akan barangkali akan hancur. Ya, kalau apa yang kita bangun itu tidak berkelanjutan atau tidak sustainable. Kenapa harus disaster resilient? Karena ini ada satu kajian ya yang digambar sebelah kanan ini, yang ini, bahwa negara-negara yang banyak bencananya, tren GDP-nya per kapita itu cenderung mendatar karena dia naik turun. Untuk negara yang bencananya tidak terlalu banyak, ya, without disaster, trennya GDP-nya akan meningkat dan per kapita. Kenapa? Karena setiap kali yang kita bangun hancur lagi kena bencana. Ya, jadi seperti ini contoh jalan yang amblas, kena gempa, sini kena banjir, jembatannya ambrol. Nah, itu istilahnya dia tidak punya resilience, dan resilience itu bukan hanya kuat sebetulnya, tetapi juga mampu beroperasi kembali secara cepat ya. Karena kalau tidak mampu dipulihkan secara cepat situasi ini, maka ekonomi tidak akan pulih dengan cepat dan itu banyak kerugiannya, banyak problemnya terhadap GDP. Nah, kenapa di Indonesia ya? Kita lihat tahun 2023 saja ada 5.400 kejadian bencana di Indonesia. Dampaknya sangat besar. Tahun 2024 sekarang sampai Oktober ini memang kelihatannya lebih sedikit ya, 1.560. Tapi kalau kita lihat, kita ini belum masuk, kebetulan tahun ini kita masuk El Nino ya, jadi hujannya agak kurang. Tapi nanti kalau sudah masuk musim hujan, di mana-mana jebol lagi, kena banjir ya. Jadi itulah, dan setiap kali ada bencana besar ini kita harus keluar uang lagi, membangun kembali dan seterusnya. Jadi penting sekali bahwa apa yang kita bangun di Indonesia itu tangguh terhadap bencana dan berkelanjutan. Itu motonya yang nah, sebetulnya di dalam nah ini konsepnya sebenarnya. Ini perkembangan konsep yang disebut dengan sustainable and disaster resilient infrastructure ya. Jadi prinsipnya kita punya infrastruktur, ada sustainability-nya, ada resiliensinya. Kalau ini sampai tahun 2014 pandangannya seperti itu, tapi kemudian berkembang lagi tahun 2016 ada irisan antara keberlanjutan dengan ketangguhan terhadap bencana. Nah, kalau sekarang ini menjadi integrated ya, bahwa resiliensi itu bagian dari sustainability, artinya ketangguhan terhadap bencana itu bagian dari keberlanjutan. Sebab kalau infrastruktur kita tidak tangguh terhadap bencana, maka tidak bisa disebut sebagai infrastruktur yang berkelanjutan atau sustainable. Nah, kenapa itu menjadi penting? Karena Indonesia sendiri sudah mempunyai policy atau kebijakan mengenai infrastruktur yang tangguh bencana dan berkelanjutan ya. Kita mengikuti acuan dari SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, dan Sendai Framework. Kalau yang Sendai Framework itu kesepakatan global untuk ketangguhan terhadap bencana, sedangkan SDG itu kesepakatan global untuk keberlanjutan. Nah, ini diturunkan menjadi undang-undang, peraturan presiden atau peraturan pemerintah, kemudian diturunkan lagi menjadi rencana pembangunan jangka panjang dan jangka menengah, yang diturunkan kembali berikutnya kepada rencana-rencana renstra dari sektor ya. Masing-masing diturunkan lagi ke level daerah ya, pada provinsi, kabupaten, kota ya, untuk implementasinya. Dan untuk yang infrastruktur yang kewenangan pusat memang diturunkannya di sini ya, pada pada tingkat nasional. Jadi sebetulnya secara struktur, secara susunan Indonesia itu udah ideal begitu ya. Sudah memiliki aturannya, mengatur tentang keberlanjutan infrastruktur, tentang ketangguhan bencana infrastruktur, ada badan-badannya seperti ini. Di sini ada Badan Penanggulangan Bencana yang mengeluarkan kebijakan-kebijakan itu, kemudian ada sektor-sektor kementerian dan seterusnya. Nah, tapi ini kebijakan ya, infrastruktur di Indonesia, infrastruktur yang berkelanjutan dan tangguh bencana. Kita punya Undang-Undang 59 2024 itu untuk RPJPN ya, 2025 sampai 245. Di agenda nomor 7 itu ada membangun infrastruktur dan fasilitas yang berkualitas dan ramah lingkungan, yaitu sebetulnya berkaitannya tadi dengan sustainability dan resilience ya. Diturunkan lagi undang-undang ini menjadi Undang-Undang 18 2020 tentang RPJM kita. Di sana ada kebijakan, ada strategi untuk membangun ini nggak bisa penunjuknya ya, nomor battery for this ya, this di dalam bentuk strategi untuk pembangunan infrastruktur tangguh bencana dan memperkuat infrastruktur vital, atau bahasa Indonesianya infrastruktur vital ya, agak mirip alat vital, tapi kalau di internasional atau di dunia istilahnya infrastruktur kritis atau critical infrastructure ya, tapi Indonesia nggak punya definisi critical infrastructure, istilahnya adalah vital infrastructure. Tahun kemudian diturunkan lagi dalam bentuk Perpres untuk pencapaian tujuan-tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan, dan juga pada melalui Perpres 87 2020 untuk perencanaan penanggulangan bencana sampai 2044. Di tingkat kementerian ini keluar Permen PU ya nomor 9 tahun 2021 tentang pedoman untuk konstruksi berkelanjutan ya, konstruksi berkelanjutan. Nah, kemudian pada tingkat regional atau ini barangkali ini gapnya ya masih, karena di tingkat provinsi, kota, kabupaten itu masih lemah sekali penerjemahan dari yang di atas itu. Ya, jadi di isu yang barangkali kita hadapi. Kemudian berikutnya adalah tantangannya ya, pada tingkatan implementasi itu memang tidak terlalu kelihatan ya detail-detailnya. Bagaimana sih menerapkan infrastruktur, agenda infrastruktur yang berkelanjutan dan tangguh bencana. Meskipun kita sudah punya Permen PUPR nomor 9 2021 tentang infrastruktur berkelanjutan, tetapi juga tidak jelas bagaimana itu harus dilakukannya, diimplementasinya. Dan kalau kita lihat mestinya ya dari undang-undang dan peraturan pemerintah, peraturan presiden sampai peraturan menteri PU itu muncul di dalam katakan project brief ya, atau desain kriteria misalnya ya. Dan ini yang sampai sekarang belum nampak ya. Saya mengambil contoh misalnya di sini untuk spesifik di design build project ya di Indonesia, bagaimana strategi implementasi dari infrastruktur berkelanjutan dan tangguh bencana ini. Ini kalau contoh aja ada aturan untuk pengadaan pedoman pengadaan apa desain build ya. Jadi apa namanya desain perencanaan dan konstruksi yang terpadu ya. Tidak kelihatan bagaimana isu sustainability dan disaster resilience itu diterapkan. Di sini hanya muncul bahwa harus mengikuti keberlanjutan ini dari apa namanya di pasal 39 dari Permen PUPR nomor 12 2017 itu. Yang muncul cuma kata berkelanjutan, tetapi kemudian bagaimana berkelanjutan itu harus dicapainya. Requirement-nya tidak muncul di dalam project brief-nya, di dalam apalagi kalau sudah turun sampai ke kontrak misalnya ya, general condition of contract, terus apa namanya spesifikasi teknis itu nggak kelihatan ini muncul. Kemudian di dalam pengadaan seperti ini, jadi desain kriteria ya, dokumen desain kriteria atau TOR atau quality target atau semua persyaratan ya, kemudian earthquake load requirement misalnya itu aturannya memang harus mengikuti standar yang ada, at least SNI gitu ya. Tetapi pada waktu kita turun lagi, jarang sekali kita bisa temukan design requirement yang memastikan keberlanjutan dan resilience di dalam infrastruktur yang mau dibangun. Kemudian aspek kerentanan dan exposure di dalam desain itu jarang sekali dibahas ya. Nah, harusnya pengadaan design and build itu merupakan kesempatan yang baik sebetulnya bagi kita untuk memasukkan persyaratan-persyaratan terkait ketangguhan terhadap bencana dan keberlanjutan ya, karena kita sebetulnya punya banyak harapan pada service provider, jadi penyedia jasa itu mempunyai kemampuan yang baik, technical expertise ya dalam bidang ini. Cuman yang kurang itu barangkali insentifnya bagi para pelaku itu untuk betul-betul men-trigger implementasi ini dengan baik gitu ya. Jadi ini contoh saja misalnya ada project design build, ini kita baru jalan-jalan kemarin ke sini ke Istana Presiden di IKN ya. Di dalam IKN principles-nya itu muncul kan, ada prinsip nomor sekian, ada KPI-nya sustainable and resilient cities. Tapi memang yang disebut dengan resilience itu lebih kepada resilience apa namanya ketahanan pangan daripada ketahanan terhadap bencana yang muncul istilahnya. Ketahanan terhadap bencananya tidak ada detailnya ya. Sebenarnya bukan hanya sekedar ketahanan ya, tapi ketangguhan. Ada perbedaan kecil antara istilah ketahanan dengan ketangguhan. Kalau ketahanan itu kuat menghadapi shock, gangguan. Tapi kalau ketangguhan itu selain kuat menghadapi gangguan, shock, juga dia mampu untuk bangkit kembali, elastik, pulih kembali dengan cepat. Itu istilahnya tangguh, gitu ya. Dua hal yang agak berbeda. Nah, ini lucunya di Indonesia itu dua instansi pemerintah menggunakan dua kata yang berbeda untuk resilience. Kalau Bappenas dan kawan-kawan dia pakainya istilah ketahanan. Kalau BNPB istilahnya ketangguhan. Akhirnya disepakati, kita pakai bahasa aslinya aja resiliensi katanya, tapi belum terlalu diterima istilah resiliensi. Ya, ini contoh-contoh project design build di Indonesia seperti Kijing Container Port, tadi Istana Presiden atau Trans Sumatera Highway Project, itu juga kan banyak yang design build. Tapi kalau kita lihat mungkin masih sangat minimum ya implementasi dari kebijakan-kebijakan yang sudah diatur pada level paling atas pada waktu project implementation-nya. Nah, kita kebetulan ada mahasiswa saya yang sedang riset mengenai bagaimana kita menilai suatu infrastruktur itu berkelanjutan dan resilience ya. Jadi kita sedang mengembangkan suatu framework ya dari suatu infrastruktur, kita nilai sustainability-nya seperti apa, melalui sustainability assessments, kemudian resilience-nya seperti apa, ini ada 4 komponen dari resilience-nya. Nah, kalau sudah masuk lolos semuanya ini, itu disebut resilience. Tapi kalau tidak lolos, ya entah di sustainability-nya atau di resiliensinya, maka prosesnya balik lagi kepada apa namanya, kepada proses awal. Jadi mereview kembali dokumen perencanaannya dan seterusnya. Jadi ini yang sedang dikembangkan, belum jadi, mungkin mudah-mudahan tahun depan udah jadi, bisa digunakan untuk menilai keberlanjutan dan ketangguhan dari infrastruktur kita di Indonesia. Saya kira sementara itu, oh ya ini tantangan ya, bagaimana design and build project di Indonesia itu bisa sustainable dan disaster resilience. Saya hanya menyebutkan di sini saja ada paling tidak 6 tantangan. Pertama, integrasi dari sustainability goals di dalam proyek dari pembangunan. Yang kedua, risk management pada waktu kita membangun infrastruktur. Yang ketiga, adanya stakeholder engagement. Kemudian yang keempat, regulatory compliance. Ya. Kelima, knowledge dan skill gap, ini tantangan juga. Kemudian terakhir, ini selalu nih tadi ceritanya di mana-mana termasuk PPP kan financial constraint ya. Jadi sekarang ini kita punya uang terbatas. Kita penting sekali, akhirnya mungkin prinsip-prinsip sustainability dikalahkan gitu. Kita harus mencari solusi-solusi yang bisa terjangkau dengan kemampuan finansial kita. Barangkali prioritas sustainability di bawah, agak di bawah. Tetapi yang lebih penting buat kita sebenarnya prioritas untuk resilience-nya, karena kalau kita buat infrastruktur yang tidak tangguh terhadap bencana, kita dipastikan bahwa setiap sekian tahun harus membangun kembali karena dia hancur kena bencana begitu. Terakhir barangkali ini sekedar saja bahan pemikiran diskusi, apa peran dari AKI misalnya ya, teman-teman di AKI di dalam menerapkan sustainable and disaster resilience infrastructure di Indonesia gitu ya. Ini untuk dipikirkan saja ya, tapi tidak mudah menjawab ini. Ya. Apa yang diperlukan dalam project governance kalau kita ingin menghasilkan suatu lingkungan project yang memberikan kesempatan bagi kontraktor untuk mendeliver sustainable and disaster resilient infrastructure. Bagaimana misalnya contoh yang paling spesifik saya, general condition of contract, technical specifications itu harus disiapkan agar kontraktor bisa nanti mengembangkan project estimate-nya ya, costing, terus pricing dari estimate. Karena barangkali memang kalau kita ingin infrastruktur kita sustainable dan tangguh begitu, barangkali ada sekian persen cost yang harus dinaikkan dari business as usual gitu ya, entah berapa persen gitu ya, mestinya tidak terlalu banyak gitu. Nah, untuk menjawab pertanyaan-pertanyaan ini, karena memang tidak mudah menjawab pertanyaan ini, kita butuh kerjasama antara industri barangkali dengan akademik. Jadi pesan sponsornya adalah mari kita bekerja sama antara industri, antara para kontraktor, antara AKI dengan perguruan tinggi untuk mencari jawabannya bagi pertanyaan-pertanyaan ini dan lebih lanjut. Baik, demikian barangkali paparan saya, mudah-mudahan bermanfaat buat kita semua. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Give applause for Prof. Krishna that explained about the sustainable and disaster resilient infrastructure that remind us also for the role of the AKI or contraction in Indonesia. Okay, the last but not least, we would like to hear the explanations from Prof. Tong Kwan Chan from La Trobe University of Australia. But it reminds that if you have any questions, please write your questions on Q&A column. Don't forget to state your name, where you're from, your question, and whom the question is for. And now for Prof. Tong Kwan Chan, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Joko, Chairman of AKI. Thank you very much for inviting us, and respected members of AKI and the audience. Can I have my PowerPoint slide, please? Right. So what I want to talk about today is on construction technology. Maybe I like to stand up. It's easier when I speak standing up. Now, I've lived in several countries around the world. So I was born in Malaysia, went to live in the UK to do my PhD, went to work offshore in Sarawak, Malaysia, then Singapore, then back to Malaysia, then Australia. I see construction across many different countries in the world. And I think you guys do this too. When you look at construction in different parts of the world, you wonder, why do they build that in a particular way? I don't have the answer, but I have a system that helps you think about the answer. Okay, so let me try to explain what's going on. I have a lot of slides. I'm not going to go through all of them. I've skipped through a lot. So I'm just going to give you a very brief sample of what I have. Residential housing in Melbourne is generally timber. So if you look very carefully at the picture on the right-hand side, it's timber structure supporting the roof. The picture on the left shows you how we trick viewers into thinking that it is a brick house. It is actually a timber house, and the brick is there for show only. This is how residential houses are built in Malaysia, and I suspect it's very similar here in Indonesia. Reinforced concrete structure, brick infill. So what do you think these buildings are constructed? Any suggestions? The one on the left is Malaysia. The one on the right can be anywhere in the world. It's a building from Melbourne. So what I'm going to do today is try to help you understand the differences in construction technology, and then you ask yourself if there is an optimum mix for technology, different systems, and what are the implications for industry? What can the industry learn about construction technology? So my definition of technology is very broad. Let's start with a very simple data set on building costs across major cities. This is taken from Turner and Townsend's International Construction Costs Catalog. It's a bit old. I think this is 2018. What I've done is I've highlighted Jakarta and Melbourne. These are the costs in the city per square meter, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously, countries like Hong Kong will be expensive in Asia, then it comes down. Australia is relatively expensive. Europe will be expensive. Okay, this is because it's in US dollars. Land cost is not included. This is purely construction, because once you add land, doesn't make sense. What I've done over here is, now this is again in US dollars. I have plotted all the countries by grabbing the data for GNI per capita from the World Bank and workers' wages on the right-hand side. Makes sense, right? The wealthier the country, the more you pay your workers. Indonesia is over here. Well, it sort of makes sense. Then you ask yourself, what's happening in Qatar, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in the UAE? These are countries that engage foreign labor. So instead of paying their citizens' wages to construction workers, they pay them a lot less. So that basically explains why in some countries construction labor is cheap. Next thing I look at is concrete costs. Now, is there a trend? Now, if you delete all those cheap foreign workers, then it sort of makes sense that concrete is more expensive in high-cost countries and slightly cheaper around Indonesia. I don't really know why it's expensive in Africa. Something strange is going on there. Now, when I start comparing in US dollars, it doesn't quite make sense, right? Because we are not spending US dollars, we are spending local currency. Should we use PPP adjustments to adjust? It gets very confusing. So I have a new measure that helps us understand how costs are calculated. I am going to use a derived cost index to remove the effect of currency, okay? And this is how it's done. I'm giving you the example of Indonesia. Data is about 2018, okay? 1 cubic meter of concrete is 750,000 rupiah. 1 hour wages is about 17,750 rupiah. Therefore, 1 cubic meter of concrete is equal to about 40 hours of labor. So there's no impact of currency. Currency is taken out. Let's compare other countries. Oops, sorry. 1 cubic meter of concrete is only 2.3 hours of workers' wages in Australia. 1 cubic meter of concrete is 8.5 hours of workers' wages in Malaysia, and in India, it's 75.
Where's China?
I have all the data. I don't have time to explain everything.
I expect it has something to do with the population.
Not necessarily, not necessarily. Okay, so what does this tell us? You can extend from concrete to other materials, to steel. I have a whole range of data, okay? But I don't have time to explain everything. So we are just using this as an idea that you can think about when you start thinking about why we adopt certain technology, why there is a different mix of inputs, of labor, of materials, of machinery, of other technologies. Why it works in one country and may not work in another country. Concrete to labor costs. So if I were to plot that same number, what did I say? Indonesia was about 40, right? So Indonesia is here. So concrete is relatively cheap in all those countries, and then it becomes more expensive as the level of income reduces. So we would expect that you will use a lot more labor and less materials in a lower income country. If I go back to Australia, the concrete slab thicknesses are very often uniform. We don't make it 200 here, 180 there, 150 there. We don't, that's just too expensive, right? We will just make all 200. So that's generally what I'm trying to say. So labor is expensive. Labor is expensive in high income countries. Concrete is expensive in lower income countries. There are comparisons between brick and concrete, timber and concrete, and that helps us explain all the different uses of materials. Okay, I want to give you another example. What happens when you have different technologies? This is still concrete. So I'm going to compare a concrete slab with 150 kilograms per meter cube of steel bars in the concrete. Concrete is 200 thick, grade 30 concrete and formwork. Now, let's compare Australia over here. So the solid blue is the cost of formwork. The green is the cost of reinforcement, and the light blue is the cost of concrete. If you look over here, the dark blue, half of the cost is formwork. If you look at Indonesia, your formwork cost is, what is that? 15%. Right? You're not looking at the actual cost. You're only looking at the proportion of costs. When your proportion of formwork costs is that low, you will construct using cast in situ concrete. When our cost of formwork is that high, can you see that half of our costs is labor? It is not actually useful. It's not captured in the building. It's just labor cost. The cost to erect the formwork and the cost to remove the formwork is half. So what should we do? We can't build like this. So this is a picture from a low labor cost country, Malaysia. We can't build like this. We build like this, where precast, lift core is over here, all precast, stairs all precast, columns all precast, formwork is steel metal formwork. Bondi, right? Reinforcements, we don't even cut the reinforcements, it's a mesh because our labor cost is so high. Another interesting comparison that I want to show as an example is this. Mobile crane on this side as number of hours of labor. So a mobile crane is relatively cheap in high-income countries. A mobile crane is terribly expensive over here. And when I talk about expensive, I'm not talking about US dollars or Indonesian rupiah. I'm talking about labor hours. So technology, what I'm trying to say is that technology is expensive in developing countries. You then have to think about what are the implications of what I'm trying to say for your industry. Do you invest in upskilling your workers? Do you try to raise worker income levels and create more value add? This is another example of a longitudinal study carried out in Melbourne, Australia. We have data going back to 1972. And it allows me to compare 4 or 5 different construction systems. I'm looking at reinforced concrete beam and slab. So that's the conventional cast in situ. This is using metal formwork. So that's bond deck. This is bond deck with post-tension systems. And that's a fully precast system. 1972, labor costs is the white one, concrete supply costs is the gray one. If I take concrete divided by labor, that ratio comes down from about what, 8 or 9, comes down to 4. So concrete over time becomes cheaper. And this is the implication. Of course, construction cost goes up, right? So the first system is reinforced concrete. Now, when reinforced concrete is on the left, when metal formwork came out, metal formwork was more expensive than reinforced concrete. But as labor cost goes up, can you see that number 1 becomes taller? The second one becomes slightly shorter. Finally, in 2015, conventional cast in situ is most expensive. Precast becomes the cheapest. And that is because of the changes in the input prices. So what I'm trying to say is that if you can identify the tipping point, when it changes from one technology to another technology, then you know how to get your industry going, right? You then explain how or which technology best suits your country. So it allows us to identify the transition from labor-intensive to labor-saving methods. We don't need to look at this. There's a study in Melbourne that shows how we move from steel structures to concrete structures. I don't have time to look at that. There is a lot of cross-laminated timber being used in Australia today. We call that giant plywood. It's 150 mm thick. That's being used for buildings like this. How much time do I have?
It's steel columns.
No, those columns are not steel columns. I think they are timber columns as well. Yes. This is the library in the Docklands in Melbourne. Yeah, I think Krishna has seen that. Again, that whole building is built out of cross-laminated timber. So that aligns with the sustainability agenda as well, because cross-laminated timber is from a renewable resource. So what I've done is given you sort of a theoretical framework for you to understand or for us to interpret some of the challenges in industry and what are the opportunities we have to possibly invest in training and upskilling of workers, increasing their wages, and to decide how much wages should increase and how it impacts technology choice. You would want to think about using local materials, grow your local supply chains, encourage sustainable practices. We also talk about technology, invest in technologies that enhance quality and productivity. You will obviously adopt digital tools, but think about what technologies work for you, okay? I always see many developing countries investing in the best technology, thinking that it is most productive. No, it has to work for you guys. You have to choose a combination of technologies, combination of inputs that work for you. We don't need to go through this. We can discuss this later on if there is time. So that ends my little presentation on construction technology. Do you want me to talk about the CII now or later? Oh, maybe later. Maybe later. Okay. So that ends my presentation on technology, and we'll pass it over to Pak Bimo.
Thank you, Pak TK, Pak Igor, Pak Chen. Since this forum is mostly for ours here in Indonesia, I'm not going to apologize. This is our forum, so I'm going to speak in Bahasa Indonesia. So you may interpret as you wish. Bapak-bapak, terima kasih pertama kali tentunya, pertama-tama tentunya pada Pak Joko dan kawan-kawan, Pak Posan, Pak Taib. Jadi pada waktu ini cerita sedikit ya, pada waktu kira-kira 3 minggu lalu atau sebulan yang lalu saya kontak Pak Joko menyampaikan kebetulan sekali kami di ITB namanya kelompok keahlian dan manajemen infrastruktur yang dulunya namanya manajemen dan rekayasa infrastruktur, tapi kita coba memperluas sedikit skopnya sehingga mencakup juga bagian infrastruktur. Kalau di hulunya kita bicara tentang bagaimana merancang infrastruktur dengan baik gitu ya. Terus nanti di hilirnya bagaimana memelihara infrastruktur yang terbangun. Jadi cocok. Nah, kebetulan tahun ini kami berkesempatan bisa mengundang dan mengumpulkan 3 pakar. Semua sebetulnya awalnya dari Melbourne Affiliate ya, pengalaman. Dan untuk tahun ini kita punya fokus lebih dari sekedar pertemuan-pertemuan biasa. Coba slide-nya sedikit ya, Mas Enos. Silakan. Jadi sambil nunggu ya. Jadi tahun lalu Pak Igor sama Pak Chan sudah datang ke Indonesia, ada bagian dari pertukaran kunjungan riset maupun pendidikan. Yang tahun lalu yang sempat ke Australia, Melbourne itu Pak Krishna, Pak Rizal, Bu Putih sudah sana. Kemudian Pak Abdul juga sudah pernah. Kemudian Bu Rektor, Bu Reni juga sudah pernah sana. Jadi hubungan kami dengan waktu itu hanya di Melbourne Uni, ya sudah cukup dekat, sudah banyak. Lalu ada inisiatif perjalanan. Nah tahun lalu persis kira-kira pada setahun persis ya, tanggal 4 November itu kita mengadakan suatu pertemuan, kita sebutnya sebagai workshop gitu ya, tentang construction technology, tentang bagaimana menggabungkan 2 institusi dari 2 negara yang kita bisa fokus kepada penelitian dan pengembangan di industri konstruksi. Lalu muncul istilah kerjasama riset itu dulu namanya AICRC kalau dibaca gitu ya. Jadi singkatan dari Australia Indonesia Collaborative Research in Construction. Terus tapi sambil berjalan kita juga mulai tanya-tanya kok AICRC kok seolah-olah seperti artificial intelligence. Akhirnya ya kita gantilah. Dan lagi leadingnya sebetulnya Indonesian Australia Collaborative Research in Construction. Jadi kita buat seperti itu. Ya. Lanjut saja, silakan. Ya. Denos. Nah, jadi sebetulnya bayangannya seperti inilah. Ada 2 negara, Indonesia dan Australia. Nanti nyambung juga ini. ada Profesor Chen, mungkin ada spear ketiga China, ya. Tapi kita mulai dengan Indonesia, Australia, dua negara. Engagementnya pada waktu itu awal-awal di tahun ya awal tahun sebelumnya mungkin 3-4 tahun yang lalu individual. Karena sudah sering bagaimana kita lembagakan. Nah di situ di setiap negara ada universitas. Ya kebetulan yang leading, yang punya ide inisiatif itu kalau di Indonesia ya B, kemudian kawan-kawan di Australia di University of Melbourne. Sekarang makin banyak, ada Lathrop, ada Deakin, Uni Melbourne tentu saja. Di situ nanti ada namanya RIT juga masih ada gitu ya. Kita coba besar. Nah ini sudah berjalan dari tahun lalu meskipun inisiatif ini kurang bergerak ya karena banyak alasan. Nah tahun ini kita coba berpikir bagaimana kalau kita melakukan penelitian pengembangan itu sesuatu yang bukan sekedar dari akademia saja, tapi sesuatu yang relevan dengan industri konstruksi. Ya, sehingga lewat forum ini, saya terima kasih pada Pak Joko dan kawan-kawan, gitu, kita punya kesempatan, ya, bertemu dengan leading association yang relevan dengan industri. Sehingga nanti kalau kita melakukan penelitian, pengembangan, gitu, semua yang industri yang kita tackle, jadi bukan angan-angan mau seperti apa gitu ya. Nah, tadi ada contoh beberapa pandangan gitu ya ke depan yang bisa kita kembangkan sehingga akhirnya nanti tanggal 5 November di Bandung kita membuat semacam mini workshop tentang ya apa yang dibicarakan seperti ini, tapi lebih spesifik gitu ya. Ada beberapa penjara itu dilakukan di kampus, ya, tapi hybrid juga. Jadi silahkan yang mau ikut. Hanya untuk tanggal 5 hari Selasa minggu depan itu fokus kepada kalangan akademia, universitas. Tapi practitioner boleh. Tapi jangan khawatir, kalau practitioner itu sebetulnya acara yang sama isinya itu akan kami selenggarakan waktu kegiatan konstruksi Indonesia di ICI BSD. Tanggalnya tanggal 7. Ya, nah tentunya meskipun bahannya sama karena konteksnya agak berbeda, tentunya yang dibahas saya harapkan lebih berwarna, ya. Nah itu yang ke depan. Nah sehari sebelumnya, coba slide berikutnya mas. Sehari sebelumnya kita menyelenggarakan, kalau tahun lalu ada 2 days workshop, sekarang kita batasi sajalah menjadi seminar gitu ya. Ini dilakukan di kampus kami di ITB, nanti ada linknya, ya. Kita akan bicara beberapa hal. Nah, apa hubungannya seminar ini dengan AKI misalnya ya? Justru kami, ya, kalau ada kawan-kawan dari AKI, baik itu sebagai refleksi institusi maupun individu yang tertarik mendalami hal tertentu, mari kita sama-sama manfaatkan mekanisme ini ya. Jadi selain sifatnya seremonial sampai jam 9:30 gitu ya, mulai dari 9:30 itu ada beberapa sesi untuk memaparkan riset, baik itu sifatnya kemajuan atau baru inisiatif ya. Contohnya saja tentang productivity dan lean construction itu dari dulu Pak Abdul sudah supporting gitu ya. Tapi kali ini kita akan menggunakan juga masukan dari Profesor Gosang dari Melbourne Uni yang akan hadir secara online bicara Pak Abdul. Tentunya termasuk praktek-praktek sudah dilakukan di Indonesia. Pak Abdul melakukan penelitian tentang sejauh mana implementasi lean konsep ide konstruksi ada ya. Prof. Chan nanti akan bicara tentang construction industry development. Nah kali ini mungkin dia akan bicara tentang apa yang dilakukan Prof. Chan membantu CIDB, CIDB ya, LPJK-nya Malaysia untuk merumuskan strategic planning di sana, ya. Dan terus ini ada juga riset yang akan dilakukan oleh Bu Iris Marley, lanjutan riset dulu kerjasama dengan Melbourne Uni tentang construction. Ini satu hal yang juga saya kira menarik ya. Saya punya pengalaman menarik waktu pertama kali kunjungan ke IKN Itu daerahnya remote, waktu itu 1,5 tahun berdebu, kotor gitu ya. Tapi saya ketemu engineer perempuan muda, mukanya nggak susah, malah seneng gitu ya. Jadi apa nih gitu ya. Saya kira ini potential resource gitu ya. Sementara kalau kamu kan kalau engineering, apalagi civil engineering, kalau di project itu urusan laki-laki. Tapi kok ada anak-anak muda perempuan sedang, ada apa nih ya. Jadi kita coba melakukan riset promoting gitu ya. Bukan karena saya yang nanya Mas. Tapi ada suasana yang tercipta di sana. Jadi menarik kalau kita juga pelajari, dan saya juga ketemu beberapa kemarin ya dari HK ya, engineer muda kerja sana ya. Itu saya kira suatu topik riset yang bisa didalami oleh kontraktor gitu ya, bagaimana memfasilitasi potensi sana. Kemudian Pak Igor nanti akan bicara juga international construction, khususnya yang terkait dengan riset-riset terkini kembali lagi juga nanti Pak siapa namanya Pak Chan Tengku Chan itu bicara tentang PPP. Saya di situ ingin mengajak Bapak Ibu membahas tentang post construction. Nah, ini saya coba lebih dalami karena bulan lalu saya diminta Pak Joko bicara tentang aset manajemen digital ya. Yang jadi host itu waktu itu Pak Fosan. Saya tindak lanjuti Pak. Saya bawa ide ini ke HPJI. Jadi HPJI sudah minta saya sebagai ketua bidang project management, coba kita bikin policy paper untuk Pak Dirjen. Ya, idenya kerjasama sama Pak Najib gitu ya. Kita sudah menggunakan teknologi building information modeling ya, bukan sekedar show off, tapi betul-betul kita manfaatkan. Jadi itu saya mengajak Bapak Ibu sekalian gitu ya, kalau ada ide, ada kebutuhan bahkan gitu bisa memanfaatkan forum ini dan seterusnya ya. Itu beberapa mahasiswa S3 juga dilakukan. Kembali ke slide sebelumnya deh. Ya. Jadi idenya begini Bapak Ibu, kalau kita bisa memperkuat inisiatif ini, maka selanjutnya yang kami bayangkan di ITB, termasuk Pak Krisna yang ex ITB tapi masih selalu bersama kami itu, kalau Bapak Ibu di industri ada suatu yang ingin dibahas dengan akademia, ya, mari dibawa ya menjadi suatu kegiatan rutin. Kalau perlu kita punya rule of problem, ya. Dan nanti menyelesaikan tidak ITB saja, tapi kita bisa sebar ke banyak universitas. Karena ahlinya misalnya Pak Suraji, kalau kita bicara tentang safety itu ada di Padang dan lain-lain ya. Jadi kami akan berfungsi sementara ini menjadi fasilitator. Ya satu saat mungkin koordinatornya bisa berpindah lagi. Nah, ide-ide seperti ini, jadi universitas berkumpul, kemudian industri juga ada masalah, itu sebetulnya sudah mulai dilakukan sejak tahun 1960-an kalau nggak salah di Amerika. Ya, awalnya namanya Business Roundtable. Jadi perusahaan-perusahaan kontraktor besar di Amerika itu ngumpul breakfast, ya ngobrol, ada masalah apa nih? Karena terlalu sibuk atau nggak punya resource, gimana kalau masalahnya kita minta tolong universitas? Terus berlanjut, maka dari sekedar pertemuan-pertemuan sarapan, makan siang, itu akhirnya dibentuklah suatu organisasi yang namanya Construction Industry Institute. Ya, nanti misalnya kalau Construction Industry Institute itu sponsornya Aki, ya Akinya aja butuhnya apa gitu, ya. Aki merupakan sendiri butuhnya apa. Jadi yang mikirin lain selain bisnis ya silakan aja universitas atau apa gitu ya. Dan itu punya impact sangat baik gitu ya. Jadi ini sebetulnya inisiatif yang kami tawarkan dan mudah-mudahan bisa disambut dengan baik. Jadi pada kesempatan forum berbagi pengalaman atau pandangan secara ilmiah baik yang di ruang ini maupun juga para sejawat praktisi yang mengikuti secara online bisa melihat sama seperti saya melihat ini sebagai opportunity ke depan. Gitu. Mungkin pengantar seperti itu, dan ini saya mengundang lagi Pak Chan, Pak Mo CI.
Yeah. This is just very quick. My PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Can you put back my PowerPoint?
So we can leave here 5.
No, bukan.
Yeah, then.
Cost. Then go to the last 3 slides. Last one, right? Last one. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me very briefly talk about the Construction Industry Institute for Indonesia. So following up on what Pak Bimo was saying, we were suggesting that if we could create an institute between academia and industry to address global challenge of construction, to encourage more collaboration between industry and university, to advance knowledge in construction management, infrastructure management. So we think that the center will allow us to address your concerns. So we want this center to be driven by industry. Okay. Wait, next. Why can't it go? We want this center to be driven by industry, where industry comes up with the questions. It is not going to be research. It will be universities helping industry to improve. So we think that AKI would be a great organization to be involved with this endeavor, right? So ideas will come from you. The universities will then bid for projects. So you come up with the question, you come up with the funding, or jointly look for funding from other organizations. The universities will come together, help industry answer these questions. Universities may be from Indonesia. It will also call upon experts from overseas. So as you have seen today, we have come from different parts of the world to contribute to answering some of your research questions over here. So we are offering this organization. We think that the organization will be very useful for Indonesian industry. There's a role for ITB to play, where they are sort of bringing all this together. And ITB also has a very strong network of researchers across all Indonesian universities. So what I'm saying here is that international research partners bring expertise and global perspective to inform on Indonesia's role as the largest economy in Southeast Asia and your ambition to be a major player in the global economy. So this is our operating model. We think that we propose that industry members pay a nominal annual fee to receive research reports, market reports, attend annual meetings where we present some of these reports. It will be a member-only organization because you contribute funding to the Construction Industry Institute. All those reports will be members only. All right. We can also address training needs. So if you have identified a lack of skills, a lack of expertise in any particular area, both the international experts and your local experts can help address those concerns. So that's the operating model. Come on, next slide. Okay. I think that's all I have. Pak Bimo, over to you.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Chan. Jadi itu idenya meniru model CIA di Texas Austin. Sampai sekarang masih berlangsung ya. Jadi kalau baca reportnya itu beberapa report itu justru menjadi standard of practice di industri di Amerika. Jadi risetnya nggak main-main. Nah, kami di awal tentunya tidak berpretensi untuk menjadi sesuatu lembaga riset yang excellent di sana. Jadi purpose-nya mainly to work together with the industry. Win-win solution. We help the industry as far as we can, and we gain knowledge from the industry to disseminate to the academia. That's the idea. Another thing that might be worth considering, I heard that our parliament has been thinking about changing law number 2 and swinging back LPJK from underneath the Ministry of Public Works back to the industry. So it's been back to quite some time that the P word and LPJK is not functioning. Pengembangan. They are mainly busy on administration. So I think this is the opportunity, how the industry can seize the opportunity to be the leading of the industry itself. Of course, we're going to alienate ourselves from the government, but I'm thinking about later on the government will be playing less dominant role in the construction industry, and the industry itself will govern the whole industry dynamic. That's the idea. Ya. Dan tadi ada tawaran Pak Chan, jadi kita tidak sekedar riset. Jadi kalau ada keinginan untuk upgrading skill segala macam, kita bisa lakukan. Ya. Adanya teknologi memungkinkan kita melakukan upgrading itu tidak harus offline. Ya. Jadi bentuk-bentuk seperti ini, tapi lebih struktur, bukan sekedar mencari sertifikat. Tapi betul, mungkin ada tesnya juga, ada apa sih. Jadi silakan member nanti punya privilege ya, yang training ini kalau outside member boleh ikut training, tapi mungkin ada grade tertentu. Ya, itu pembukanya saja gitu ya sementara, dan kita juga coba bersiap-siap menggalang kekuatan lebih banyak. Jadi sedikit-sedikit dari Melbourne mungkin nyebar lama-lama kemana-mana ya, itu ada. Itu mungkin Pak, silakan Mas Joko, Pak tadi mau nanya, katanya mau nanya.
Pak Sari, silakan Pak Sari.
Oh ya, dicek dulu lah.
Iya, kasih.
Okay, we can see there's some of the questions from the Q&A column. Please open it so we can read it.
Silakan yang mau menanyakan, raise hand, silakan.
Okay, first from Junia Asih. Hi, I'm Juni from the Polytechnic of Public Works Indonesia. With the current emphasis on reducing CO2 emissions, there's a growing trend toward using recycled materials and biomaterials in constructions. Could you share how this policy shift is progressing in Australia and China, and also from the contractor perspective? How are they adapting to these sustainability requirements? Thank you.
So I guess this question is
for
Right where you
okay.
Pak Igor. This Australia is addressed to you.
Australia is very concerned about global warming and carbon emissions. We are signed to the Paris Agreement to reduce carbon emissions to, I think the exact date, 2015 level by the year 2030, something like that. Sustainability is at one level extremely important, but it's something that's actually been focused on, in my opinion, for quite a long time without that particular term. The tricky part is that the definition of sustainability has changed, and now at least includes the concepts of economy, environment, and social equity
That's what I was.
It's difficult for Australia to achieve its promise, as is the case for a lot of countries, for the simple reason that the economic cost is quite high. And indeed, the Labor Party lost an election some time ago, Bill Shorten, based on promises that Australia couldn't keep. Nevertheless, the challenge is ongoing, and Australia is doing as much as it can. Unfortunately, if Australia stopped all its cars and stopped all its factories and switched off all its lights, the effect on global carbon emissions would be less than 1%. So it's definitely a very large challenge. Australia is committed. We are doing our best to achieve promised climate targets, but A, it's very expensive, though the cost might come down. B, the effect has not generated we haven't achieved the results we promised, and so it's really an ongoing challenge. I think the same is for Indonesia.
China's government is very committed to carbon emission issues. So we have two carbon objectives, carbon neutral and carbon zero, in 2 phases. So this national strategy has impacted every sector and industry across the whole country, including construction, of course. So, for example, you cannot imagine maybe on every construction site in any major Chinese city, all the trucks are electric vehicles. Can you imagine that? All of them are. Also, in some projects, in some PPP projects I was involved in, we got those construction waste from a city to produce bricks and curbs for various uses. Also, we have launched some sponge city projects across the whole country. So just to hold all the water from the sky and hold them and release them when it's dry, so on and so forth. So I believe China is making very fast progress regarding carbon emission. And actually, because the industry is dominated by SOE, SOE must follow policy of the government. So you can see actually every construction company is very committed. I think that's a good point about SOE. Anyway, I talked about some negative side about it regarding PPP just now, but about carbon emission, I think they have done a very good job. All right.
Okay, would you like to add? No? Okay. Okay, then next question.
For the next questions, please. Okay, enough from, okay, only one. So if any questions in this room, maybe? Please.
Can I speak in Bahasa? All right. Yeah, first question is to address to Pak Igor. Tadi mengenai kelayakan finansial atau mungkin semua kelayakan. Every feasibilities. I mean, a feasibility study for some heavy infrastructures in Australia back to 1920, where there is no FS at all. As your explanation, am I correct?
Yeah.
For example, Harbour Bridge, that connected from Sydney to the new area. That at that moment, the area is still empty.
Yeah. I would say it's the way things have been done for 1,000 years. There's the feeling it's a good idea. Let's try it.
Yeah, yeah.
Possibly there are bad examples of building things, but the issue with infrastructure, as everyone knows, if there's no road, the first road is always very successful. The second road makes it better. The third road is also good, but by the time you build the 10th road, the first road is not being used anymore. So when Australia was beginning, certainly any infrastructure was very valuable. All I tried to say was, at some point, the return on investment becomes marginal. And it's at that point that one realizes if there was a master plan to begin with, then the infrastructure would have been planned for more optimally. So what I'm saying is you can build lots of roads and at the beginning it's fine. But at the end, you find it's costing you a lot of money. So you think to yourself, well, actually those 10 roads, if we had put them in different places, would have been more beneficial. And my message to Indonesia would be that considering a master plan, you have 10 economic zones, considering a master plan as China has done. I suggest China has larger zones. Professor Chen has indicated that every area on its own can be self-sustaining with a comprehensive plan. And I think that planning aspect layered first on Indonesia's development is what Indonesia can really benefit from. We don't have such a plan in Australia. China has attempted to create such a plan.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The question is, as I understand that at that moment, Australia has already become the republic, right?
No.
Independent.
Not a republic.
Oh, in 1920.
Oh, we became independent. Yes. We became independent in 1901. Not a colony.
Oh, so there is.
But we still have King Charles.
Yeah, so there's no legislative at that moment.
Sorry?
There's no legislative.
Legislative?
Yes.
Yeah, of course we have.
Oh, there is. There were.
Based on the British system.
Oh, okay. No, I mean
all colonies of the Britain.
Yeah, here in Indonesia, if we want to build especially the heavy infrastructure project that spend a lot of money, we have to look at the economic benefit. It should be compared not only to among the infrastructure project, but also other sectors to be compared. Which one is the bigger economic impact?
Because Australia is amongst the most urbanized country in the world, meaning I think it's 95% of the population live in the major cities, a couple of major cities, and 92% live on the East Coast. Then if you want to invest in infrastructure, you'll put it there because that's where the people are. But by doing so, you attract further concentration of people and economic activity in an increasingly limited area. What China, I believe, I mean, Professor Chen can speak to this, but what China has, I think, done is looked westward as well to the underprivileged areas and provided investment opportunities there in order to integrate the West into China's broader economic activity. Not completely and not to the same extent, but certainly a little more than Australia. And I should add, this contributes not only to economic development, but nation building. If you have deprived areas like West Irian compared to the Jakarta area, then you will foment
sentiments of independence. And so there is a political reason to integrate through infrastructure. Possibly we don't have this incentive because we don't have this historical differences between regions. But countries with long histories have an incentive to create infrastructure to bind their countries into one unified whole. And China has also done that, I think. But Professor Chen may answer.
Regarding this interesting issue, can I have my slides? Can you reopen my slides? I would like to show you a chart. And then by linking China, I would like to give my thoughts. No, not that one. No, can you okay. So this is a so-called bond curve. I think it shows the relationship between construction and the whole economy. So you can see when a country grows from the least developed country into a newly industrial country, the construction over GNP is climbing up. When it reaches the climax, it will go down. So if China is somewhere at the very top, because China is a NIC, Indonesia is kind of LDC. So what I want to highlight is that actually, if Indonesia is somewhere here, the growth of your construction spending should be much higher than your GDP growth. So as far as I know, in this country, the construction industry growth rate is a little bit higher than GDP. So that's not enough to me. I think you should further accelerate your construction spending so that you will have infrastructure in place to support your economic growth. But be careful, because if you follow the same pathway of China, if you reach this point, you must slow down your construction. China has reached this point, but it's difficult for China to slow down. This kind of inertia, or it's so, I mean, China is such a big economy. Infrastructure investment accounts for maybe 50% of GDP. So that's too high. It's difficult to slow down. That's caused a lot of trouble.
How many percent?
About 15%. Yes, usually it should be somewhere between 2% to 6%. That's the average range of construction spending over GDP. But China's is much higher than that range. So that's not good.
It's from 7 till 9.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's fine.
Maybe because of the GDP itself is quite low.
Oh, yeah.
Number of population, of course.
Okay, can you backward a little bit? Last page. Show me the last slide. Sorry, can I? Oh, okay, I can turn by myself.
You can hold it.
You know, here's the relationship between infrastructure and economic growth again. For every $10 increase in infrastructure capacity generates $3 per annum in extra economic activities. So that's a very interesting relationship. You invest $10.
Population. Positive or negative?
So
can be both.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
For every $10 investment, you will increase
$3 economic activity.
positive.
Per year.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is kind of statistic. So it's kind of a theory.
Theory.
Yeah, it's just a theory. So, but you know, infrastructure is highly fragmented. So it is composed of different subsectors: transportation, electricity, so on and so forth. So maybe this relationship does not apply to every subsector. But I think the most subsector the most important subsector to Indonesia, maybe two of them. One is connectivity, mainly transportation and power grid. The second is energy. I think we should focus on these two subsectors as highly important. And I believe regarding these two, those kind of relationship may be higher. I mean, if you invest $10, maybe you could get a 3+ return per year from that. So those kind of priority across different subsectors of infrastructure, and you should streamline.
Yeah, actually, the main objective for the government to build infrastructure projects in Indonesia is one is to lower the logistic costs.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing is to increase our competitiveness.
Yeah.
Compared to other countries.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the thing that happened in Australia from 1920 also happened in Indonesia because of the political
interference.
So that's what as we know that Indonesia has a strong willingness to move to the new capital.
Yeah.
From the past government. But now the new government want to slow down because they shift the priority into the what they assume the more important sectors rather than the new capital itself. Because become more realistic rather than ambitious for political purposes.
I didn't go to show you Indonesia on my presentation.
Will you?
Not necessary.
Why not?
Because it's very sad story or
No.
Oh, it's getting hotter.
it's getting hotter, yes. You want to enjoy it. Enjoy the number.
But there are many foreign companies in Indonesia, the majority of which are Chinese, and there was some research done on how companies feel about investment, how positive they feel, and how positive. And there are criteria that they discuss,
Indonesia is like
last week.
well, I'm. So there's your ranking, 50th out of 141. That's okay. 72nd. So you're in the middle in terms of infrastructure competitiveness, which is to say the effect of infrastructure on economic growth. There you are. You see the character standing in the train there, a handsome guy. There are a number of foreign companies here. You can see the Chinese contingent. Look, I just want to show you this list. Where's my pointer? I'm comparing Australia and Indonesia and Australia. The disincentive to invest in Australia. Why do why do companies not want to invest in Australia? The biggest one is infrastructure. The red one is Australia, and you can see that's the lowest one of them all for Australia. But for Indonesia, the biggest problems, as you know, are corruption. And corruption here means instability on policy. You make a plan, infrastructure investment PPP 20 years or 5 years, but anyway, longer than a presidency, and there's a lack of confidence that your policy will remain such that any investment is contingent on a ecosystem of investments to help each other. What's the point of a rail linkage or a port facility if there's no factory or housing? But again, as Professor Chen said, perhaps it makes sense to have one PP encompassing a whole lot of projects at once. So, yeah, here you can see the problem. Australia has a lack of infrastructure. So this is Australia, and this is bad. This is good. Lack of infrastructure is why nobody wants to invest in Australia. And this is bad. This is good for Indonesia. And corruption and government bureaucracy and policy instability, those three factors prevent investment in Indonesia.
Is that the correct base? You put corruption?
So this is negative.
Oh, okay.
This is positive. This is Indonesia. Negative, positive. Corruption, government bureaucracy, and policy instability are the factors which prevent disincentives for investment in Indonesia. Oddly, lack of infrastructure is less of a problem in your country than in ours, which is a surprise, I think.
No, that's because the population
Yeah,
concentrates
sure,
in
sure.
Jakarta.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's the proportion for government spending in infrastructure sector? Government spending against PPP in Australia and compared to Indonesia.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the figures are.
Because of the different main factors,
But this is also very interesting, the relative effectiveness of financial schemes as determined by Indonesia companies. This is the relative effectiveness of financial schemes. The most effective is bank finance, government guaranteed PPPs, and standard PPPs. These have the highest rates of effectiveness in Indonesia. So PPPs works, should work, or at least better than a range of other financing options. This data comes from Indonesia.
Yeah. It's considered.
Yeah.
SOE's investment in PPP considered as PPP or government spending?
Well, there's bank financing as well as government guaranteed PPPs and standard PPPs. Those are the three top preferred or most perceived.
He was asking if the private sector was represented by state-owned company, where the money actually came from the government. Would that still be considered PPP?
No, actually,
no.
Actually, we have a similar question in China. You know, if a PPP is under guarantees of the government, this PPP should be taken as a debt of the government. So the government guaranteed PPP is not a true PPP. It's kind of a debt. It's a debt of the government. It's kind of a hidden debt. Yeah. So it's not good, actually. Yeah, not completely. I mean, you can calculate kind of a percentage of the debt on the shoulders of the government.
probably spend a lot of time with the speaker, so please.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Juan, I saw from your presentation that China started to conduct the PPP since 40 years ago, isn't it? Our country also started in 1982. This is the toll route from Cawang to Cikampek. This is the first time PPP done by my company. Yeah, sorry. and then secondly, about water supply in Batam. This also 1995, so almost 20 years ago, 40 years ago. But we have a long time story about PPP, but we never learn about the fail and succeed. Even now, we still fail, Pak. The latest PPP project, what we have done is in water supply and Umbulan. So I tell you what, the problem is because of we are signing with the local government. And then local government promised to pay us with tariff. So we supply water a certain volume, and then local government take or pay to us. And then by the time they cannot fulfill the agreement. So this is the problem of the commitment between investor and the local government. So it is about commitment. So PPP also, I believe that in China, your government is strict to commitment. So committed to investor who has their money to do something to build the infrastructure. Of course, investor is just only talking about, okay, our risk is business. Other risk, should government bear that, isn't it? So like change of law, and then also any political changing. But we are only talking business. I mean that okay, if we put money 10, and then what's the IRR, I mean return for us, yeah. So this is the differences. So we need certain climate about the investment in Indonesia. Of course, this is to you, Pak Bumans, to make not to government here in after. So as academic, you should tell okay, this lesson learned about the PPP. So and also I need your experience. What is the key success factor to do the PPP in China?
Actually, the first PPP in China started in 1981, just 1 year earlier than Indonesia. So the two countries actually pretty much have the same learning curve. In China, you say, I mean, local governments here in China are very committed to PPP, yes. But actually, many of them actually defaulted in paying tariff to sponsors. So I think the investors face the same problem in both countries. The most important success factor regarding PPP in China, to me, I think is about the creditworthiness of the governments. I mean, the credit of the governments. I mean, whether they comply with, whether they abide by the contracts. I think that's the case. Even with some kind of guarantee from the government, but they can still, do not follow the contracts. At the end of the day, the sponsors, no matter is a private one or SOE, they suffer financially. So I think it's important to assess the creditworthiness of the local government. That's key. We cannot assume that our local governments are so much they can be trusted. I mean, I don't think too much. I mean, you must be, as a contractor of this association, you must be very careful in a season, that risk. But if you read through many journal papers or textbooks, you can see a list of risks that must be paid attention to. But very few of them actually touch upon the creditworthiness of the government. That's the key thing. So accurately assess it and make it controllable. That's a critical success factor from the perspective of the sponsor or the investor.
Any questions? Okay, please. It's
I'm sorry, like a question to in bahasa to Mr. Bimo and Mr. Krishna. To Pak Bimo ya, dalam arti sekarang itu inovasi maupun strategi maupun yang ada di Indonesia saat ini betul-betul ditunggu. Kaitan dengan program dari pemerintah yang sekarang kabinet yang baru betul-betul pesat sekali. Contohnya misalkan seperti yang ada di perumahan kemarin, mungkin barangkali secara umum bahwa secara programnya begitu cepat dan pendek. Nah, maksud kami ke Pak Bimo, usulan kami ke Bapak Bimo, saya kira bisa memberikan suatu program FGD atau apa dalam bentuk inovasi maupun strategi untuk menyambung terhadap teknologi maupun strategi kaitan dengan saat ini yang sekarang ditunggu, Pak. Contohnya seperti di perumahan yang kemarin kami ikut daripada program pemerintah yang saat ini betul-betul ditunggu dalam waktu cepat. Saya kira untuk konstruksi yang lain saya kira sama. Untuk jalan, jembatan, gedung, termasuk juga tunnel dan sebagainya, saya kira inovasi yang ada di sini bisa untuk propose ke Bapak kaitan dengan ITB, saya kira cukup bagus juga untuk bisa kita kembangkan di situ. Kemudian yang kedua adalah kaitan dengan programnya Pak Krishna, saya kira dari 1.500 bencana tadi Pak, apakah itu dari alam atau dari strategi atau mungkin dari kesalahan konstruksi. Itu saya kira bisa diklarifikasi supaya di sini Pak. Mohon maaf ini karena waktunya juga sudah mepet sekali Pak. Terima kasih Pak.
Ya, terima kasih pertanyaan Pak Mukhlis ya. Jadi itu catatan bencana yang terjadi yang dicatat oleh BNPB ya. Dan selalu di-trigger bisa alam, bisa manusia sebetulnya. Ada dua, tapi kalau kita lihat kebanyakan memang hazardnya adalah alam. Penyebabnya alam. Kebanyakan yang dicatat. Dan tadi pertanyaannya yang kegagalan konstruksi itu yang menyebabkan korban dan sebagainya itu bisa disebut sebagai bencana akibat ulah manusia ya, kegagalan teknologi sebetulnya itu, kegagalan teknologi. Tetapi rasanya itu tidak termasuk yang dicatat di dalam statistiknya BNPB gitu ya. Tapi kalau dilihat memang jumlahnya juga tidak begitu besar dibandingkan yang disebabkan oleh alam. Nah, tapi kalau kita pikir-pikir sebenarnya kita itu tidak bisa tidak boleh ya memisahkan ini bencana alam, ini bencana ulah manusia. Kenapa? Karena ujung-ujungnya sebuah ulah manusia, Pak. Jadi gini, misalnya ada gempa bumi yang besar, banyak bangunan roboh. Nah, kenapa bangunnya roboh? Ya ulah manusianya, karena membangunnya asal-asalan, tidak mengikuti standar misalnya ya. Jadi sebetulnya itu juga disebabkan, cuman di dalam pencatatan kita itu disebut oleh gempa bumi itu ulah alam. Jadi kita cenderung menyalahkan Tuhan gitu ya, untuk menghindar tanggung jawab. Sebab kalau mau diikuti ya, seperti gempa di Padang dulu ada hotel yang membunuh 150 orang, roboh, ada gempa. Setelah ditelusuri memang itu dia tidak mengikuti izin IMB-nya. Ada IMB-nya tapi IMB-nya hanya untuk sekian lantai. Kemudian diterusin tambah 3 lantai ke atas dengan itu bangunan lama tadinya ditambah dengan bangunan baja di atas. Jadi law enforcement. Ya, dan itu ya kita sebut kalau mau dipikir-pikir betul yang disampaikan Pak Mukhlis itu ulah manusia sebetulnya, tapi tidak ada yang dituntut. Kalau yang mau dituntut pemerintahnya atau pemilik bangunannya itu ya, tapi pada kejadian itu nggak ada yang dituntut. Nah, ya, jadi seperti itu Pak, dan problemnya banyak ya. Misalnya ada gempa bumi, terus banyak jembatan kita yang ambrol waktu gempa bumi, ya mungkin desainnya memang sebetulnya belum mengadopsi apa namanya karakteristik dari gempa di daerah tersebut gitu ya. Atau misalnya contoh ada jembatan yang ambles di Kalimantan dulu, saya pernah baca beritanya. Ternyata waktu diteliti memang pilarnya itu si tiang pancangnya itu nggak sampai ke tanah keras. Lah, kenapa? Karena salah data tanahnya. Lah, kenapa salah data tanahnya? Ya karena si konsultan pendidikan tanahnya dia masukin data dari tempat lain, masukin ke situ yang nggak sesuai. Tapi itu berantai, ujung-ujungnya kesalahan manusia semua di atas, dari manajemen di atas ya, kebijakan-kebijakan. Makanya tadi saya sebut itunya indah-indah polisinya atau kebijakannya ya. Kita sampai tahun 2045 harus membangun infrastruktur yang tangguh bencana. Tapi bagaimana itu dijabarkan sampai betul-betul misalnya Bapak terima kontrak misalnya ya, itu ada semua di dalamnya. Enggak, itu belum terjadi gitu. Itu barangkali problem PR besar kita gitu. Kan Bapak nggak mau disalahkan ya, Bapak yang membangun jembatan itu misalnya Bapak terima desain dari owner, terus jembatannya roboh. Nah, sekarang ada yang namanya apa tuh penilai ahli itu untuk itu kegagalan bangunan. Saya juga ada sertifikatnya sih. Tapi belum pernah dipakai itu mekanisme itu. Jadi belum pernah kita disuruh untuk menilai salah siapa ini gitu ya. Ya, tapi anyway itu yang akan terjadi dan kita ke depan bagaimana gitu harus melihatnya. Tapi tuntutannya sebetulnya tinggi kita itu di dalam polisinya sudah ada gitu, cuman terjemahnya ke bawah sangat lemah sekali. Terima kasih.
Makasih Pak Bas. Bicara inovasi itu ya, sebetulnya di kampus tidak sekedar ITB, banyak individu-individu sudah melakukan beberapa kegiatan yang quote-unquote termasuk dikatakan inovasi lah, meskipun bukan pure creation gitu ya, bukan invention, bukan apa, inovasi. Hanya kembali seperti tadi, yang kita lakukan uji coba, lihat dari luar negeri, itu semata-mata hanya sekedar ingin tahu, ingin mengerjakan. Jadi kadang-kadang tidak relevan dengan apa yang dibutuhkan di industri. Ya, sebagai contoh saja, saya pulang dari Amerika itu tahun 1993, karena saya waktu itu belajar tentang neural network, saya riset neural network, saya belajar tentang visualization. Waktu itu belum ada istilah BIM, Pak. I use the term of n-dimension visualization. Riset, kebetulan dananya dari World Bank, yo suka-suka. Tanya industri, belum waktunya. 20 tahun, 25 tahun, lupa. Sekarang, begitu saya udah mulai lupa ND, baru rame gitu. Ya, dan itu banyak Pak ya, modular construction itu ada. Jadi yang diciptakan justru saya kira forum seperti CII atau apa itu justru membuat innovation, baik itu pure curiosity atau based on demand, itu bisa di-cater dengan baik. Ya. Nah sekarang contohnya saja gitu ya. Saya diminta personally sama kebetulan bekas murid saya Pak Fosan kemarin gitu ya. HK nih ada masalah nih. HK diminta sama Pak Dirjen untuk pekerjaan pakai teknologi. Jadi teknologi dipaksa bukan karena assessment demand-nya butuh teknologi gitu, dipaksa pakai self compacting, automated compacting segala macam lah. Terus untuk ngukur pakai LiDAR segala macam. Ujung-ujungnya, wah kita udah invest teknologi banyak. Kan kontraktor akhirnya saya kerja nagih gitu ya. Sebelum ditagih diukur benar. Yang meriksa itu masih pakai cara lama. Kalau nggak diperiksa pakai teodolit nggak dibayar. Nah, nanya gimana caranya? Mari kita sama-sama. Ya, saya usulkan pertama kalau akademi ya harus ada bukti empiris. Karena itu saya minta ya coba ambil sampel macam-macam kondisi ya nanti secara statistik bisa dibuktikan. Ya, nanti kita panggil ahlinya misalnya dari geodesi bahwa teknologi yang baru itu justru lebih akurat dibandingkan yang kita yakini selama ini. Tapi itu pembuktian ilmiah. Yang lebih penting itu bagaimana menyampaikan temuan tadi kepada pihak yang cara berpikirnya berbeda. Auditor itu tukang periksa belanja kok. Kita udah mikir desain build bid, performance based contract, dia masih awalnya input based. Kalau nggak ini. Nah, salah satu strateginya Utama Karya, Adikarya pasti juga punya problemnya sama. Kita keroyok rame-rame, kita rumuskan rame-rame, kita undang auditornya, kita ajarin auditornya gimana caranya. Jadi kalau bertempur sendirian, ya bisa gagal. Tapi kok bertempur rame-rame dengan problem yang sama, difasilitasi oleh akademia, saya kira nggak dijamin. Tapi ada peluang. Ya. Karena saat ini saya juga yakin masih akademisi itu dianggap neutral. Jadi silakan dimanfaatkan tawaran kami gitu ya untuk hal seperti untuk memperkuatnya ya kita juga akan minta advice pengalaman dari luar negeri. Ini loh orang lain udah sampai sini kita masih ribut pakai teodolit sampai matanya kelilipan gitu ya. Padahal belum begitu kelilipan malah nggak akurat. Tapi cara berpikirnya auditor ya masih kayak gitu. Itu Pak. Jadi kita tampung Pak ada inovasi masih. Makasih.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all. I think it's enough. And give applause for all of the speakers. It's amazing to have those wonderful speakers. We hope all of them can inspire the participants and increase our knowledge as well as improve our competence and sustain construction in Indonesia. And let me give thanks again to all the panelists, Prof. Igor, Prof. Tong Kwan Chan, Prof. Chuang Chen, Prof. Krishna, and Prof. Bimo, and all of the audiences that joining us until the end of the event. And we hope that the growth of construction industry ideally is balanced with the adoption of technology and project management for a responsible and sustainable constructions in Indonesia. Okay, I am Putra signing off, and I hope to see you soon in the next events and stage back to MC. Thank you.
Can I just also say thank you very much for allowing us to come and speak to you. As we mentioned, we're so grateful for the opportunity to see Indonesia. We have been to a couple of sessions where it's very clear that Indonesian construction industry is very passionate about improving the industry. And I just want to reiterate our interest and commitment to working with you to find through a forum an avenue where we can introduce the experience from the outside world, which I think will be of interest to you through the AKI forum. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, thank you. Yes.
I think there's some question or
No, that's just a question about the presentation material. Can we just distribute?
If there's any other question in this this meeting that we are unable to answer right now, please write that question.
Sure.
Before this gentleman will be around with us for the next part.
Yeah, we meet you again on 7th.
Okay.
Because we do have a same session at the Construction Indonesia as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes. But before we close the session, this was a very insightful discussion, and I think we are not just end here. We will surely continue this talk and discussion and apply the good practices of sustainability in construction. And before we end, I would ask to Mr. Joko, the chairman of AKI, to give the memento to our speakers. It is 50 years of AKI books. Yeah, Aki is now 51 years. So I would like to ask, yes, I would like to ask Professor Igor, Professor TK, and Professor Chuan Chen, and Professor Krishna, and Professor Bino. Yes, one by one.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Pak Joko, I think so the participant can see here. Yes. Okay. Prof Bimo, please. Yeah, Prof Bimo. Okay. With the seat.
It's not gonna be my personal belonging.
Okay, sure.
No, go for you. No. Defending kelompok ahli. It must be very useful, not for me, for others. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Prof TK, please.
Thank you. Very much.
And yeah, Prof Krishna.
You can scan and use Google Translate.
Very useful book.
Okay, and I would like to ask all the board members of Aki and speakers to take picture, and everyone on Zoom, please turn on your camera. We just do screenshot, and here we do a photo session. Please, everyone, smile on your camera, smile on your laptop. Open up your video, everyone. Okay, please screenshot one. Wait. Gak usah, ntar aja. Okay, 1, 2, 3, everyone on camera. Okay, please smile. I say 1, 2, 3. Mas Enos boleh minggir dulu? Ya. Okay, everyone now. In counting 1, 2, 3, smile. Yes, okay. Now here I will ask Mas Enos boleh ambil dari depan. So this is for picture. And by that, I think we just close our online session. Thank you very much. See you again in next session. This is not the last, right? This is just the last. Thank you. Boleh foto bersama yang ada di sini.
Kalau ini
Okay, so maybe we just can take picture together, everyone here. Yeah. All attendants here. Oh yeah. I think it's sitting here. So we just Mas.
Oh boleh ya. You know why I'm.
All the speakers.
They want us to see.
Yang penting penghasilannya kan itu. Maunya
Hitung ya, 3, 2, 1. Sekali lagi, 3, 2, 1.
Suara saya 2.
3, 2, 1. Oke.
The difference in Bangladesh say satu dua tiga terus anak